Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, head coach Ross for the Attacks Gym, street warrior, Njia Uhuru Kipora. As most of you know by now, who follow my channel anyway, Njia Uhuru is a Swahili term. It means the way of freedom. Kipora is the name of the whole human and self-defense system originating in Congo, and which was mispronounced as capoeira in the year 1712 by Rafael Bluto in Brazil. Okay. This video covers 3 other terms because I'm constantly getting questions about this and emails about it, so I wanted to respond to you and give you something substantial with which you can work on. Okay, 3 terms that were being used, that's being bandied about now, especially because of all the issues that are happening in our society and in the world. Racial is one term, prejudice is another one, and racial prejudice. So let's get into that. Okay, racial is actually not a bad term. A lot of people conflate racial with racist or racism, and it's not the same. Racial is simply a reference to they're really synthetic, they're really artificial groups that some scientists and some powerful groups within our societies have saw fit to utilize to divide the human family into racial subcategorizations. So it'd be like not so much like African, which in and of itself is a Roman term, which is incorrect, and the more correct term that we call ourselves is Al-Kibulan, according to the great Dr. Sheikh Anta or Asian, or European, Caucasian, white. All of these are denominations that others have created. It's not what the individuals in the area miscalled Asia would call themselves, or the groups of people who are indigenous to the area that we in English miscall Asia. It's not what they would call themselves. And not even everybody in Europe calls themselves Europeans, because not everybody speaks English. All right, so the indigenous terminology that that people use for themselves is of the first importance, because that's their actual identity. But insofar as the purpose of this discussion is concerned, yeah, that term racial, it just refers to the, I have to spot the old, just had to do this real quick, had to clean off some of the notifications and let you know some of the noises we're gonna run into. Back to me. All right, so yeah. That term racial is actually not a bad term. It can be something like, that term racial, like I said, simply refers to the groups, the divisions of the branches of the tree of humanity. That's it, that's all. Now, prejudice. Now, prejudice has 2 definitions, and this is very, very important that we all be aware of this, because there's the common definitions that we use to refer to social issues, but those common definitions are incorrect. Those common definitions are usually based upon dictionary definitions, not the definitions that sociologists and psychologists use. It is of great importance that we understand that when we're talking about social and psychological topics, issues, or subjects, we use the definitions and the terminology that these scientists, sociologists, and psychologists themselves have crafted and defined. It's very, very important. Otherwise, what could happen is we could be talking about a social or a psychological or both, a psychosocial issue, but use the dictionary definition, and that's the wrong understanding, and that's how we wind up confusing ourselves. All right. Okay. So prejudice, short version, 2 primary meanings. A prejudice is actually a preconceived notion that, against something or someone or whatever. Usually against something. Okay, that's a generalized notion, or a preconceived notion, or a substantiated notion in favor of something. So it does not necessarily have to be people. If you have a favorite flavor, you're prejudiced toward that flavor. If you have a favorite color, you're prejudiced toward that color. If you have a favorite sport, you're prejudiced toward that sport. Now, if you have that favorite color, like let's say my favorite colors are red and black. And before you start, I heard you. I know. Don't start. I already know that black is a tint and not a color. Stop it. Work with me, all right? Anyway, red and black are my favorite colors. So if I saw a car or whatever, a jacket or something that's red or black or whatever, I'd be more inclined toward that car or jacket than another car or jacket or whatever that's of a different color, even though it may be the exact same quality, etc., so on and so forth. It's just I have a prejudice toward those colors. Same thing with flavors and sports, etc., so on and so forth. And I think you get the idea now. You know, so you can have a prejudice towards something and prejudice against something, and it's not negative. But then you can have negative prejudices, and we have to be able to understand and qualify that. All right. So a racial prejudice is negative a lot of times, but not always. And a racial prejudice, the difference between racial prejudice and racism, we'll dive into a little bit more, but a little bit later. But the short version is this. Here's how racial prejudice can be utilized in such a way that's not negative. And this is really like a borderline definition because it has wiggle room in this. You can debate this one way or the other. But some people who I know have used a quote from Muhammad Ali to say that Muhammad Ali was racist. He was not. One of the comments he made in his earlier years, shortly after he announced his allegiance to the Nation of Islam and with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he stated that that he loves himself and he loves his people, but loving himself and loving his people doesn't mean that he hates anybody else, which is absolutely correct. And then the idea was put forth that he was prejudiced. He was prejudiced toward our people. Depending on how you mean that term, you could be correct or incorrect. If he's racially prejudiced in the negative sense, no, definitely not that. But if he has a preference, like the way you have a preference for a favorite flavor or food or what have you, one can make that argument. However, I think that in of itself fails the mark because it walks the line between a negative racial prejudice and a positive racial prejudice, and he clearly meant a positive thing. He didn't think any less of someone else because he likes his people. You understand what I'm saying? He didn't think any less of anyone else because he liked himself. Remember all them things he said about a whole bunch of other black people he's getting ready to box. He had all kind of trash to talk about Sonny Liston, Frazier and everybody else, even though he loves black people and he loves himself. So we have to be aware of these kind of things and recognize the difference here. Now, the negative form of racial prejudice means that one has a negative, preconceived, generally inaccurate, negative impression of individuals who are not in the same racial group that one is, whoever the person is being prejudiced is, and the same person has a very high and usually unwarranted opinion of the racial group that he, she, or they are in. All right? That's what racial prejudice is. Now, here's the big difference between racial prejudice and racism. Those who have racial prejudice, we're talking about individuals or small groups of people. Most importantly, we're talking about people who lack the power to enforce their prejudices across the operations of a society, state, country, or civilization. Those who are racist have racial prejudices and ingrain the way in which their racial prejudice operates and what their racial prejudice is in every single institution in the way in which a whole society operates. So that means that because they have the power to, they were talking about the elite here. We're not talking about the average cats that we run into, like some fool who will scream like the N-bomb at you as he's driving by his car. Not him. He's an idiot. He's been taught to be racist, but he doesn't have the power to create and enforce racism. We're talking about people like conglomerates, corporations, banks, police, military, politicians, all of them working together. They have this power, and they've ingrained it in the very way in which the system, not only here in the United States, but across all European and Arabic civilizations operate. You will always run into racism in that regard. Period. That's it. Okay? And that's because the way in which the civilization operates. In order to change it, you have to oust these people from power, and you have to actually change the way in which the system works. And the way that change happens is you have to actually deliver the promises that they make, which of course they have no intention of delivering. So they'll say stuff like, yes, we think that all men are created equal. Notice he said men, not people, not human beings. They're talking about men. All men are created equal. Well, and then they'll go around and create laws and practices and so on and so forth to make certain that 99% of human beings are not treated equally on purpose. Anyone who's not them, the rich elite gets screwed. And the more you're not them and the more you look like me, the more you get screwed. That's the difference between prejudice, racial prejudice, and racism. Okay? So, racial prejudice, racial prejudice. All right. If you have any questions or comments, holler at your boy. Please subscribe to this channel. Yeah, and follow all my social medias, including on Instagram and Facebook. It's your man's head coach Ross for the Tax Gym. Asante sana. Amani. Take care of yourself. Ashe.